Today, let's talk about a more political topic. Who is more dangerous to the world, Trump or Putin? Let's start with the statement that neither of them is an ideal leader. But if we put their danger levels on the same chart, Putin is not just a little higher, he is on an entirely different level. What is Trump like? He can be compared to a man who destroys government buildings. It is loud, scary, and displays his ruthlessness when breaking political walls. Now, what is Putin like? Putin is a man who has already turned the government into a military base. In addition to this, he's not just knocking down walls, he's driving tanks into other people's houses. So, this is not just a comparison between two angry old men with a bad temper. This is a comparison between a destroyer held inside a democratic system and a war maker inside an authoritarian empire. Let's start with Trump. Trump's problem is not simply that he says ugly things. These days, saying ugly things almost feels like a job requirement for politicians. The real danger of Trump is that he constantly attacks the boundaries of democratic institutions. He attacks the media, saying that any media outlet that does not support him is fake news. He attacks the judiciary, saying that judges who rule against him are part of political persecution. He questions election results and turns defeat into conspiracy. He asks the people around him to be less loyal to institutions and more loyal to him personally. This pattern is very familiar. First, tell your supporters that the country has been stolen by bad people. Then, tell them that only you can take the country back. Finally, tell them that if you lose, it does not mean you lost, it means that the rules were rigged. This is like playing cards. If I win, it proves I'm a genius. If I lose, the table is crooked, the dealer is biased, and the deck was printed by the deep state. So, yes, Trump is dangerous. He turns politics into a reality TV show and turns governing into a ratings driven show. Sometimes when you watch him at a press conference, it does not feel like a president explaining policy. It feels like a boss doing a live stream sales pitch. This tariff is fantastic, the best tariff ever. This deal is incredible. Nobody has ever seen a deal this great. That country used to take advantage of us, but now they love me. Really, they all love me. But the key point is this: no matter how much Trump disrupts things, he still faces the American system. The United States has Congress, courts, state governments, media, elections, opposing parties, and civil society. These institutions are sometimes slow, sometimes messy, and sometimes they look like a crowd fighting for parking spaces. But they serve a purpose. They turn a leader's impulses into procedures. They drag personal will into the machinery of institutions and force it through friction. So Trump's danger is the corrosion of democracy from within. He can make the system sick, but the system is not completely dead. However, Putin is different. Putin is not merely challenging the system. Putin has turned the system into his own coat. Does Russia have elections? Yes. Does it have courts? Yes. Does it have a parliament? Yes. And does it have media? Also, yes. But the problem is that the function of these things has changed. In a normal society, elections are supposed to replace leaders. In Putin's system, elections are more like an annual medical report. No matter what the actual condition is, the final conclusion is always the president is perfectly healthy. What about the courts? Normally, courts are supposed to limit power. In Putin's system, courts look more like printers for power. You input a political decision at the top, and a legal document comes out at the bottom. What about Parliament? Normally, Parliament is supposed to debate. In Putin's system, Parliament often looks more like a choir. The only difference is that some people sing soprano and some sing bass, but the lyrics are basically the same. They all say the president is wise, the nation is great, and the West is evil. What about the media? Normal media are supposed to supervise the government. Major media under Putin's system mostly explain why the government is always right. If the economy is bad today, it is because of Western sanctions. If the war is not going well tomorrow, it is because of NATO provocation If young people are unhappy the day after tomorrow, it is because of foreign forces. In short, Russia's problems are never Russia's problems. Somehow, everyone else forced Russia to become this way. This is why Putin is far more dangerous than Trump. Trump is creating chaos inside a system that can still resist him. Putin controls a state machine that has already become highly personalized around him. Trump can post something and trigger a political storm. However, Putin can make one decision and tens of thousands of soldiers may cross a border while millions of civilians are displaced. This is not the same level. Now let's look at foreign strategy. What is Trump's diplomacy? It is crude, transactional, and unpredictable. He looks at allies a bit like a landlord looking at tenants, asking them, "Did you pay? Is your defense spending high enough? And are you trying to use America's Wi Fi again?" He does not look at international relations like a traditional diplomat. He looks at them more like a businessman. Did I make money on this deal? Did this ally pay enough? Can this war allow me to announce, "I solved it"? Does this meeting have cameras? Does it have applause? And does it have a very large signing desk? This kind of diplomacy is annoying and it is dangerous because allies never know whether he will change his position tomorrow. Today, he says NATO is a great alliance. Tomorrow, he says everyone is taking advantage of America, and today he says he wants peace. Tomorrow, he talks about maximum pressure. The international community really fears this boss style diplomacy. The meeting is not even over, and he is already calculating everyone's property management fees. But Trump's core logic is still based on transaction. His goal is usually not to formally annex neighboring countries' territory. His goal is to make America gain advantage and make himself look like the winner. However, Putin's logic is completely different. Putin is not simply saying, "I lost money on this deal." Putin says, "This place historically belongs to me." Once that sentence appears, the nature of the problem changes. Because once you start using historical maps to decide today's borders, we might as well shut down the United Nations and let everyone go home to search their family trees. You say, "Crimea historically belonged to you." Someone else can say that this land belonged to my ancestors 500 years ago. And someone else can say that this was part of our civilization 2,000 years ago. In the end, the whole world becomes a giant archaeological site with tanks driving in front and historians handing out documents from behind. This is the danger of the Russia-Ukraine war. It is not an ordinary diplomatic dispute. It is not a trade war, not a tariff conflict, not two leaders exchanging threats. It is a nuclear power using military force to change borders. And Putin's goal is not just one piece of territory. He wants spheres of influence, buffer zones, and the restoration of Russia's position as an imperial center. Simply put, Trump wants America to collect more money. Putin wants neighboring countries to have less sovereignty. Both are ugly, but the danger levels are completely different. Of course, at this point, someone will definitely say, America has done many terrible things too. Like, what about the Iran War? What about the Vietnam War? What about the intervention in Latin America? And what about drone strikes? This objection is valid. America is certainly not some pure white lotus in international politics. American history includes hegemony, intervention, double standards, and many moral stains. But the question today is not whether America is a perfect country. Of course it's not. If international politics required moral purity, all 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council would probably need to go wash their hands. The key distinction is this: the main problem with contemporary America is hegemonic intervention. The problem with Russia is territorial revisionism and imperial revanchism. America often says, "I want influence in this region." Russia now says, "This region should have listened to me in the first place, and if necessary, I can invade it." One is hegemonic logic, the other is imperial logic. Neither is good, but the latter is more direct, more bloody, and more uncontrollable in today's European security order. So let's return to the opening question. Who is more dangerous, Trump or Putin? Trump is dangerous. He damages democratic norms, deepens social division, dismisses institutional constraints, and turns national governance into personal performance. He is like someone randomly pressing buttons in the cockpit while the co-pilot, the control tower, the ground crew, and a plane full of passengers are shouting, "Stop touching that." However, Putin is more dangerous because he's not just randomly pressing buttons. It's as if he's locked the cockpit, shut down the control tower, kicked the passengers off the plane, and then told everyone where this plane flies will be decided by me in history. Trump's problem is that he may weaken American democracy. Putin's problem is that he has already used a highly centralized authoritarian state to launch a war. Trump is the destroyer from inside a democratic system. Putin is a war maker of authoritarian imperialism. Both are dangerous, but Putin's danger is not just about words, style, or political performance. Putin's danger has already become war, territorial occupation, refugees, death, and the collapse of the European security order. So do not simply treat them as two strong men. Even strong men have different levels. One is smashing furniture inside the house, and the other has already set the neighbor's house on fire. That is the fundamental difference.